What if the very thing that sets you apart is the key to everything you're striving for? Welcome to Uncommon Edge, the podcast for those who are done with the ordinary and ready to own what makes them different. I'm DJ Neumann, and if you're here, it's because you know you're built for more. You're uncommon by design, ready to break boundaries and build a life of purpose, success, and impact. Each week, we'll dive into hard-hitting strategies, raw stories from the trenches, and the tools that will sharpen your edge. From game-changing lessons to deep-diving interviews, this is your space to rise up, build, and make your mark. Whether you're growing a business, dreaming of starting one, or looking to level up in life, you'll leave each episode with insights and inspiration to make it happen. You weren't designed to blend in, you were designed to stand out. So if you're ready to defy the norm and bring out your best, let's dive in, get to work. Your journey to owning your uncommon edge starts now.
Have you ever looked back at a year of your life and thought, what did I even do with my time? That punch in the gut feeling, it's not because you didn't have enough time, it's because you weren't intentional with it. Time doesn't create growth, intentionality does. Welcome back, everybody. I'm DJ Neumann, and this is the Uncommon Edge, and I want to get real with you for a little bit. It's crazy to think that some people make more progress in 6 months than others can make in 6 years. And it's not luck. It's not because they have more resources. It's actually because they've mastered the art of being intentional and taking action on that intentionality, showing up on purpose every single day. And that's what today's episode is all about, how to actually wield intentionality as your uncommon edge and ensure that you're sharp as possible to maximize the output that you are actually getting out today. So let's look at this. Let's start with the myth of time. We've all been sold this idea that growth just takes time. Success can come to those who are just patient enough. And if you're just patient enough, things will eventually just happen. Just wait, But here's the truth. Time is actually neutral. It's what you do with that time that actually counts. I mean, if you think about it, two people could start a business on the same day. And one's thriving within a year and the other is still, getting ready. Two people can hit the gym and one transforms in 6 months and the other is stuck at square one wondering why. What's the difference? It's all about intentionality and the actions that they're taking. Now, it's not about having, more hours in the day. It's about making the hours you do have actually count. Your uncommon edge isn't just about your talent. It's about hustle. It's about how intentionally you are going to wield what you got. These are big things, and every one of us has an opportunity to wield that intentionality different. Some things you might show up extremely intentional about. Maybe you're the guy or girl that's big into the gym and that's a thing. Or maybe you're extremely intentional with your relationships, or maybe, your business is spot on. Where are you intentional? Is it health? Is it wealth? Is it relationships? Where is that intentionality showing up in your life? Because see, all of us are intentional at some point or another. We're not all perfect. Trust me, I'm not perfect in this realm of intentionality. However, there are areas in my life that I show up extremely intentionally. And then there's others where I definitely need improvement. I'm sure as you're listening to this, you're thinking to yourself that there are ways that you could be showing up more intentionally. And there's others that you're actually pretty satisfied with how you're showing up right now. So what is it about that time with that intentionality? How much time have you taken? Have you ever looked back and thought, man, I thought I'd be way further along than I am right now? So as you listen and continue on to this episode, I want you to think about, what are the actions that you should be taking that your future self will thank you for? What are the things that you wish your past self would have taken action on so you could have been in a better spot today in whatever category that might be? A little while back, I read this book. It was called the Shark and the Goldfish, I believe is what it was. And in this book, it had this analogy, and it kind of stuck with me. A shark actually waits to find its prey, right? Actually, I messed that up. It's actually the goldfish waits to actually be fed. You know, it sits in its fish tank, and it's got an owner, and it's in a nice, clean, neutral environment, and the fish flakes just start falling from above, and it's got a pretty easy life. But the problem with the easy life is it comes with a lot of constraints, right? I mean, there's only so much room in a fish tank, and there's not a whole lot that can happen. But if you put that fish tank or that goldfish in the ocean, you would realize that, man, there's not a lot of ways for that goldfish to really survive because it's so used to being fed. This is also why they say don't feed the wildlife, because, when somebody gets used to being fed, they lose all natural instincts to hunt for themselves. Now, here we go into the shark, and the shark will go ahead and need to hunt for its prey. And it has to be intentional with how it hunts and why it moves the way it does. Actually, here's a fun fact. A shark has to continually be moving forward, otherwise it will die. Isn't that crazy? And if you think about that, like us as humans, we kind of get the same way. If we lose our sense of purpose and we don't have that intentionality with the things that we do, and we just kind of loaf around or drift around, we kind of start to die on the inside. And I've seen people that have kind of willed themselves to death because they aren't being intentional and they have lost their purpose. So, like, what are you hunting for today? Are you the shark or are you the goldfish? And what happens if all of a sudden the owner isn't there to feed the goldfish? Man, he's in trouble now, right? Like, there's some problems here. And in this like fable in this book, it was kind of cool because in the story, the goldfish kind of gets thrown out into the ocean. Something occurs where he winds his way out there, and the shark ends up taking the goldfish under its fin and teaching him how to hunt for itself and all that stuff. And there's a lot of mindset plays. Matter of fact, even on my desktop at work, I created a little what's called desktop background where it's got a goldfish with a shark fin on it, and it's all about mindset, because mindset is everything as you're moving forward. So, like, the issue is I've seen like a lot of people move through life like the goldfish, just drifting, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity to come along and just dump itself in your lap. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Matter of fact, most of the time that doesn't happen. The shark is the one that's actually going to survive or be most likely to survive. And that's why it's the strongest predator in the ocean, because it's just fierce and it goes after what it needs to survive with intentionality. So when we move into intentionality, there is a silent killer of that intentionality. All of us have intentions, and sometimes things can sneak up and hurt us. And my buddy Josh, he refers to what I'm going to talk about as FOPO. It's the number one silent killer. It's not laziness. It's sneakier. It's this FOPO stuff. And FOPO stands for fear, overwhelm, procrastination, and overthinking. You don't lose momentum because you're incapable. You lose it because FOPO sneaks in. Fear makes you hesitate. we were, my daughter and I were just talking about something where negative emotions are the majority of what we have inside our minds. There's only one emotion that's positive, and that's joy. If you've seen that movie Inside Out, look at all those different emotions that are in there. And fear takes over everything. You start acting irrational because you have these fears that just take over everything in your life, which goes into overwhelm. And overwhelm makes the tasks that you're trying to do feel so big. Like you're trying to bite off more than you can chew, and everything that you're doing is just, it's just freaking you out, man, because that overwhelm is so powerful because it piggybacks off the fear. And it leads to procrastination because you convince yourself that there's always tomorrow, and that's not always the case. I've had really good friends pass away that we thought there was tomorrow, and we had plans, and those plans never came to fruition because tomorrow isn't promised. And that's like a really, really hard truth. And it ties into when we start thinking about, there's tomorrow, well, we can get into the overthinking. And it traps you into analysis by paralysis instead of taking the actions that you need to. All these things are killing your intentionality. An antidote, though, to killing FOPO, in my opinion, is actually awareness. Being totally self-aware, catching the FOPO early, putting a label on it, understanding that is what it is FOPO, and then get back to moving intentionally. When your edge starts to dull in the battle of business or in life or whatever, it's not because life has gotten harder, it's because FOPO has snuck in. It's, you just got to call it out. And get back to sharpening your edge. After battle, when back in the day when we fought with swords and you'd hear those clangings and all that type of stuff, they would have to come back and refine and sharpen their edge after every battle. And sometimes when we're dealing with intentionality and we're dealing with all these different things, and FOPO is the number one battle that we're fighting right now because, let's face it, we have all these intentions of what we're going to be doing, but sometimes the battle of life and the battle of business and the battle that we're fighting every day, we have to come back and refine our edge and call it out. So, let's take this intentionality and put it into action. Intentionality isn't just a mindset, it's actually a practice. And this is the art of refining that edge. A few episodes back, I gave you a framework on how you can be more aware of your day and get more done through your day and time blocking. And it all started with brain dumping and then deciding your main priorities. So the first thing that you're going to do with putting this intentionality into action is actually deciding what matters. What's the one thing that if you focused on it would make everything else easier or maybe even unnecessary? Set micro goals. Big goals can sometimes overwhelm you. Break those big goals into daily actionable steps. Have you put that episode to work for you yet that we talked about? Eliminate your distractions. Every yes is something trivial. Maybe it's a no to something important. The more intentional you can be with your time, the better. And I've been so bad about this. I was actually listening to a thing with Alex Hormozy, and he was talking about protecting your time. And this was a real big eye-opener for me because I have a tendency to be that nice guy where, somebody starts talking and I'll kind of oh, yep, and I'll go with the flow. I'll do my thing. And then I had to realize that, no, is this actually being conducive to what I need to be doing right now? Is that other person's calendar controlling mine, or am I going to control my own calendar? Because at the end of the day, I'm in a battle and I have to make sure that my calendar is protected. So I've gotten way more intentional with my calendar as of lately, saying no to a lot more things. So I can say yes to the things that I actually want to do and move progress forward. And then actually tracking your progress. It's not about being perfect, but just staying aware with like the progress that you're making. Did you hit the goals that you intended to hit? Did you do the things that you said you were going to do? Put the number in the box. How many calls did you make? How many, relationships did you fester up? Put the word in the box. Yes or no. Did you get the thing done that you said that you're going to do? Just track it. It doesn't have to be an elaborate system. And then you can review and adjust what's working and what's not. A/B test things. Don't do it just because I'm saying to do it or because you heard it on a TikTok video or a YouTube video or whatever. Like the best applications of all this information that you're receiving here and in other places is actually reviewing and adjust what works for you. That's what makes it your uncommon edge, is when you refine it and hone it in for you. The recipes that your mom cooked for you or you love to make or whatever have been the best ones when you start putting your own flavors and your own spins on it. Being intentional about everything that you do is embracing that flexibility. If something isn't working, change the approach, not the goal. That's intentionality. When you set your GPS to route you where you are to where you're going and some roadblock comes in the way, they don't change the destination. They reroute you and get you to where you need to go because you're intentionally trying to get where you need to go, right? Without intentionality, your edge dulls. But when you show up on purpose every day, it becomes a chance to actually sharpen your edge. So let me get real with you for a second. I've had seasons where I've coasted. There's been times where I've woke up and I'm like, man, what have I been doing? Where I had all this busy work going on. I was busy, man. I had all kinds of things happening. I was too busy. But I wasn't being intentional. And guess what? Nothing changed. It wasn't until I started getting really intentional with the things that I want. And there are things in my life right now, if I'm being completely honest with you, that I do need to be more intentional with. But when the things that I am intentional with started shifting to even more intentionality, I started to realize that my relationships were getting better. When I have conversations with my kids, I'm really intentional with how I talk with them. I don't just come in and say, hey, how was your day? And get some bland response about, oh, it was good. I'm fine. No, start being good with your questions. We just had an episode a little while back about the questions that you ask. Well, start diving into the questions that you're having with your kids or your spouse or your family or your employees. Start asking the questions that actually matter. Like when I talk with my daughters, I talk about, hey, what was something that you learned today? What was something that made you laugh? What was something that you did that you're really proud of today? Those are intentional questions. I guarantee you, when you show up intentional with your kids, you will end up receiving a totally different kid in front of you than if you just come up in non-intentional. And that goes for every other aspect, whether you're in the gym or whether you're showing up with your coworkers or your employees or whatever it is. Start looking in the mirror, start listening to feedback with what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you're showing up. And I guarantee you, you just might learn something about yourself that you don't know right now, which is so good. It is so good because you're going to start to realize it's not about time. I knew people, and I know people that have been in the same spot for the last 10 years. And they always wonder why. Why am I making the same? Why am I doing the same? Why is this all being the same? Because they're showing up the same. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. So you have to start being intentional with the change that you make so that way you can get different things to take. Like you only got one life, man. And I'm not trying to be preachy. And I felt like a little soapboxy there in that moment. I'm talking to myself too. Like every one of these episodes are reminders to myself that, like, man, you gotta show up. You gotta make these changes. You gotta do these things. And if you're feeling a certain kind of way as I'm talking this, whether it's, man, you're right, and you got that like motivation behind you, or man, I don't want to hear this stuff. I'm not ready to hear that. That's okay too. But how long are you going to allow that to be okay? That's the real question. So the challenge I have for you is, if you've been waiting for the right time, if you've been waiting to get around to it, this is it. This is the right time. Right now, you're listening to this. I want you to identify one area you've been coasting. Things have just been gliding along. And how can you show up a little more intentional? I want you to write down one intentional action you're going to take today. Whether it's showing up with a smile on your face when you really don't want to smile, or maybe being more intentional with the conversations that you're having, or maybe take action on the thing and jump and allow that parachute to open one more time and get over the fear, overwhelm, procrastination, overthinking, that FOPO. So you're going to identify one area you've been coasting, write down the intentional action you're going to take today, and then you're going to do it. You're going to do it. You're not going to wait. You're not going to overthink. You're just going to start. That was my grandma's famous advice to us growing up when I was a kid. And her thing was just start. Just start. Because if you just start, soon you start with what you like absolutely have to do. Like, you start with the things that, you know, are going to be possible for you in the moment. And then next thing you know, you're going to be doing the impossible because you're intentional with the things that you're doing. Remember, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but it's the ones backed by action that will actually change your life. Like, that is where the road to the promised land is when you're actually taking action on your intentions. I don't know about you. Nothing's shittier than waking up and saying, man, I intended to do that, but I didn't get it done. Like, those are the things I want you to start like going on and thinking about. So don't you forget that you have an edge and you are going to sharpen it. It's time to sharpen it with your intentionality. So with that, edge seekers, I want you to stay sharp and stand out because you are worth it.